Hi students, as we talk about our soft skills and continued things that we need to do before going to an interview, things that we need to have set up, today we're going to be talking about emails. How to set up an email address, what is an appropriate email address, checking emails, all that good stuff. So number one, we are living in the 21st century, so having an email address is really important. And when you get an email address, you need to make sure that you are memorizing the password that you create, not just saving it on your cell phone or on your home computer. Actually knowing that email password, because you might need to access your email for important information while you're at school or while you're someplace else. So it's key that you're able to get into that email address from whatever device, wherever. You need to make sure that you are checking your emails regularly. Really, you should be checking them every single day. And when you set up an email address, you want to make sure that your email address is appropriate and that it's mature and that it reflects you. When I say reflects you, I don't mean it talks about your hobbies, like I love to hunt and fish at gmail.com. In fact, we really want to stay away from that. We want to have an email address that is short, simple, and explains exactly who you are to the recipient of the email. So for example, a great email address, if your name is John Smith, would be johnsmith@gmail.com. Now that's a pretty common name. So what if that email address is already taken? Well, you could personalize it or make it unique by adding some numbers that are specific to you. So for example, if John Smith's birthday is January 1st, 2001, then he could have johnsmith1101@gmail.com. Another thing that you need to keep in mind is when you are sending an email to someone, you want to make sure that you are using appropriate grammar, spelling, punctuation. It might be fine to use abbreviations or slang or that kind of thing in chat messages to your friends or text messages to your friends, but in an email, especially in an employment type situation, you really want to make sure that you're sounding professional and educated. So for example, something like "see you tonight" doesn't really fly. You want to make sure that instead you're writing things out properly, like "see you tonight." So that's better. You probably can't see it, but there's a little period mark at the end of that sentence there. Something that is a personal pet peeve of mine, and if it's a pet peeve of mine, I'm sure it's a pet peeve of other people as well, is when people misuse the subject line on an email. So for example, when you're writing an email, you've got the little line where you put in the recipient address, like janedoe@gmail.com, and you have the CC option, but then there's that subject line where you get to write a brief detail about what your email contains. I've seen it happen before where people will write an entire sentence in that subject line. That is confusing to read, and often when you're opening your email, especially if you're opening it on a smaller screen, it's not going to show you everything in that subject line anyway, so you're only getting a little bit of it, and you're expecting the message to be in the body anyway, so it's just really kind of confusing. So here is an example of what not to do. You can see that there's a message written in the subject line. You do not want a full sentence in your subject line. The subject line says, "I won't make it to class tonight because I have a sick child at home and I don't have anyone to watch her at the last minute. I plan to be in class next week." Well, a better thing to do would save that portion for the body of your message. So right here you can see that I've put that as the actual message, so it contains that same information, and in the subject line I have put "absent tonight." That way I know that when I open the email it's going to be about a student that's absent. And also this student at the end of the email put in a thanks and then her first and last name, so that way I know exactly who that message is coming from. So Luckily, that student probably had a janedoe@gmail.com email address already, but if she did have something different, then that would make me know who was sending the email address or sending the email. Another thing that I want you to know is in regards to having that email address that doesn't have your name, it's not personalized to you. So let's say you've got an old email address like iloveflyfishing@gmail.com. That's not technically inappropriate. There's nothing wrong with fly fishing, but especially if you're applying for a job, that doesn't easily identify you, and the person receiving that email isn't gonna necessarily know if it's spam or if it's the job applicant, that kind of thing. So that's one of the reasons why you really should have an email address that is specific to you. But if you already have an old email address, you don't have to get rid of it. In fact, I would encourage you to save that and use that as sort of a junk email address. So I have an email address that I've had since I was in the 6th grade, and now that's where I send any kind of promotion thing. If I enter a drawing and they ask for an email address, that's the email address I put down because I know they're gonna send me promotional information that I don't really need. Sometimes if I buy things online, I don't really need to know the confirmation number or when it's been shipped or all those little updates, so I'll use that old email address for the tracking purposes. And then if I need to see that tracking information, I still have access to that email. I can still search it and find it and open it, but it's not coming to my primary email address, which I use for more personal things, but also more professional things as well. So the new email address that you use, don't give that out to just anybody. Make that be something that is really important. Give it to the people that you really want to have access to your email, not as in they can read it, but you want them to get in contact with you, whether that is a potential employer or your friends or your family. That's the email that you actually want to read. The other one can just be for the junk that you don't really need. So hopefully those email tips and tricks will help you out. If you've got any questions, you can always come to me and I'm happy to help you. I'm also happy to help you set up a gmail.com account. It is completely free and very useful. Thanks for watching.